right there. Perfect. Okay.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you so much, Sandy. That was an amazing introduction. I'd forgotten some of that information. The presentation I'm making is going to be in two parts. The first part, I'm going to actually ask the audience to participate. I'm going to show several pictures and ask you all, what does that image communicate to you? And then I also ask that you look at the image very carefully and note that none of the pictures that I'm going to be showing tonight are necessarily, as Sandy just said, going to be taken for the purpose of winning competitions and pleasing judges because they're technically perfect or anything like that. I'm taking them because to me they communicate.
And Kay, may I just say now that when you are asked people what they what the image is communicating to them, that they should put the answer in the chat, and I'm going to help you with that. Okay.
Sure, that's fine. Okay, well, the name of the program is Visual Communication, and this funny picture on the left, which I didn't take, is a great example of how a picture can say more than 1,000 words sometimes. It's not progressing, Sandy. What am I doing wrong here?
I don't know. It worked for us before. Anybody want to help?
Try the down arrow.
Yeah, no. Well,
There you go.
I know I was just, all right. I see what I have to do here. Okay, this is the first picture. Who would like to tell me what it communicates to you?
And type it in the chat. Joy. A couple of people have said joy. Actually, 3. Yeah. Happiness.
Great. Okay.
Love. Fun. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Bright future.
Great setting. Okay. Nope, it's still not working. The only way I'm able to do this. Okay. Here, this is the next image. Look carefully. It actually probably has a couple of stories.
Full house. Things parents would never let their kids do today. Trouble.
I love that one.
Family together. Our gang. Oh, the lost episodes. Oh, that's good, guy. Our gang. Shoes needed. Future broken leg. Oh, this is good. The girl is separate. Oh, good observation. Yes. Wow.
That's right. That was what I was hoping you would notice.
And of course, that was Steve Dembo.
Aha, Steve, thanks. Yes, she's the only girl in the picture, and she's also the most adventurous, because she's going to be jumping off of that roof in a few minutes, and the boys are just happily sitting up there near the entrance. Okay. And this is the next image. This is going to be a bit harder.
Generations.
Okay.
Not ready for reconciliation, at odds with one another. Oh, it's going so fast. I got to get out of this place. Future past. The future has to be more than this. Oh my God, such pensive. Yin yang. Whoa, my good. Pensive, yeah.
I'm delighted. It really does communicate. When I showed it at a competition, it was eliminated instantly.
The future has to be more than this. Oh, excellent. Anyway.
Okay, that's great. Let's go on to the next.
Oh, hang on.
I got it.
Okay, good, Jim. I made you co-host. Thank you.
I also like to have my portraits communicate, not just show an interesting face. So I would like to know if anyone is able to be communicated to with this image.
It takes the chat a while to enter it. Oh wait, hang on. Oh, okay, hang on. Oh, so good. Just a minute. Yeah, dignity, proud, strength, resilience, fashion anyone, pride, a strong woman, a hard life with dignity, I'm somebody, strength.
Perfect. I'm very pleased.
The quality of her life is expressed through the lines in her face, hard times, a secret story, a regal woman still here. Anyway, thanks everybody.
Oh, thank you. That was great. Okay, here's another.
Okay. It comes in so fast. Hang on just a second.
Sandy,
How
it
can I
might
help?
help if you make your chat window bigger. So
I just did, but I was
Yeah.
having to watch the participant list as well. So anyway, a friend in need. How can I help? Helping hands, down and out. I think brotherhood, helping a buddy who's in a tough place. Can I help? Friendship, kindness, brothers in need. That seems common. Help us still hand to heart. Wow. Poverty, friendship, the place they're in. Picking my pal's pocket.
Yes.
Cuckoo, yeah. He's not helping, he's stealing. So yeah.
I call the image the drunk and the thief.
Huh. That's good.
But I loved all the other things that people saw in the picture. Thank you very much. I think we have one last shot.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll be ready for this one. Exuberance, joy, yoo-hoo, look at me. Mancusi, summer fun, good-natured fun, the joy of being a child in summer. Who needs trunks? God, that's good. Look, Ma, no hands, best swimming of all. Leap before you look. That's good. Linda, that's great.
Um,
Freedom, kids are kids anywhere you are. So true.
well, these are wonderful communications. And I certainly thank you. But now I want to tell you what, if I had put a title under the picture, it could be Joy is Laundry Day at Lake Tana. The mother is seen right in front of the little boy, and she's scrubbing laundry, and her bucket is up to the left. And you might wonder then, if it's laundry day, why is he not wearing other clothes? Well, perhaps he only has the clothes she's washing. And the last thing about this image is that I was visiting this location along with a group of nurses who were public health, rural public health workers, and they were taking tests of all of the children to see what parasites they might carry. Well, unfortunately, this water is full of them, and the worst is schistosomiasis, which kills a person if it's not diagnosed immediately and treated. So the picture to me says a lot of things. And if I didn't have that information, I would have agreed with all of your points.
Kay, is this a lake or
Yes, it's a very large lake. It's Lake Tana. It's the largest lake in Ethiopia.
thank you.
Mhm. Okay, I'm going to go on to the second part now, which will be showing you some of the stories. And before I do that, I know that you Camera Club people are always interested in equipment. So I'll tell you that when I went off on this particular trip, which was 6 months long, and my first trip, I carried 2 different cameras because I had a Pentax and a Nicormat, and I couldn't afford another Nicormat at that point. As a result, of course, I had to have lenses for each of the systems. Secondly, I used the mostly Kodak film, Kodachrome 2 and Ektachrome for lower light situations, and also Plus X film and a faster speed black and white film. There was no, I didn't use any flash, just available light. I didn't carry a tripod. And so it was really the most basic of equipment. The biggest problem I had was that I couldn't see what I was taking. Now that with the digital camera, of course, that problem is solved. But I had film that I would have to send to the States and then get a report back of how it was. So after my first assignment, I was so worried about this because the airplanes had required me to check it in, my film. So I had 1 roll of film processed, and then after that I could be more at ease. Payment. I was not paid in advance for any of the assignments. So what they did do was provide me with local transportation, and most times with a driver who could be my interpreter. And all of the hotels, food, air traffic, was all on me. The languages, as I said a minute ago, I did have the help of a driver who would interpret for me. And on occasions when I didn't have, I had still a passable use of French because some of my stories were in French-speaking West Africa. Storytelling. I was trying to have my pictures tell a story. Sometimes, of course, it wasn't necessarily photojournalism, but documentary photography that was required. But in every case, I tried my best to have them storytelling. And technique. I didn't have very much technique then. I still don't as far as digital is concerned. But I had a technique with my subjects, and I put them at ease with smiles and listening to them and just enjoying being where I was, and therefore making them at ease. My first stop was in Ghana. This was my first assignment of a 6-month trip on a very tight budget. So this picture is taken from my hotel room window, and you can see I'm not staying at the Hilton. When I left the hotel that first morning, a man stopped me on the street and asked if I was American. Yes. He shook my hand vigorously and said, "Your country is wonderful, and now you're better than the Russians." The news on the radio and in the papers was all about American rocket landing on the moon and Neil Armstrong's walk. One small step for man, one giant step for mankind. Wow, what a way to start my day. My assignment here was with a small broadcasting TV station that was developing programs for children. I also photographed a girls' boarding school in Accra. And then I had a few days that I could just enjoy being there. And I took photos in the street with the thought that perhaps later on I could sell some as spec. This picture shows a game that was very popular, and I came across it several different places on the streets of Accra. But I'm showing this image because it also illustrates a problem that I had photographing dark skin, again, with light that was very, very bright and highlighted. And often I was able to move around a subject until I could get better lighting, but in this case, I couldn't. There were wonderful market scenes. And also little businesses on the street. This man is making shirts for gentlemen. One of my favorite places was the fishing harbor. There is, as you can see, a great deal of action and movement and excitement going on there. Another thing I absolutely loved about Ghana were all the signs. This one is a cure against madness, rheumatism, and stroke, etc. And this one is the barbering directory. There were a lot of political signs because there were going to be some elections coming up in the near future. And this one I thought was just great. I decided to include this in my presentation. It's a postcard I sent my brother. Dearest Bobby, after a series of problems with my equipment and some depressing days when I wondered why in the world I was doing this, things are beginning to look better, and not the least because Ghanaians love Americans thanks to Neil Armstrong. I have gotten 2 good stories and some life on the streets to maybe sell later as spec. Tomorrow I leave for Johannesburg, quite anxious about South Africa. No contacts there and things might be very expensive. Gosh, 6 months and I'm only just starting. Sure wish I hadn't planned such an ambitious trip. It frightens me. Please write, love, Kay. Lesotho is a landlocked new country inside of South Africa. And King Moshoeshoe is the head of state, or he is the king of Lesotho. I was invited into his home because there was an American dignitary visiting at the time, and I was able to accompany him. King Moshoeshoe was educated at Oxford University and was very modern in his ideas, and his country was just 2 years old. This is a story of the road. As you can see, it's a very mountainous country, and there are very few roads in it. You may wonder how I actually get to some of these places. In this case, you can say I hitchhiked. The gentleman on the bottom left is a clergyman working with the Catholic Relief Service. And he was going up into the mountains, and I asked if I could go with him. I think few people in America realize the whole significance of a road to a country that has so few. It can bring in commodities, sell farmers' produce, send technicians to teach better farming skills, and it can make possible the establishment of schools and small businesses. These are scenes that I took from as we traveled up into the mountains. This woman has been drying grasses that she's going to use to thatch her roof. You can see the little village up above. And this man is probably coming home from a market or some activity. Again, you can see how mountainous it is. Okay, with men away working in the mines, in South Africa's mines, 400 women were cutting a road through cliffs several thousand feet above a roaring river. I was there to photograph a food for work program. The 2 natty looking dressed guys are discussing the food and the work plans for the day. The women sang in harmony as they swung their picks, each stanza repeated in variations. In translation, they sang, "We are building the Orange River Road, and we are happy because we have food in our bellies." Food for work. In a country where there is little money to pay workers, food, the most precious thing in life, becomes most precious when a woman cares. I'm not seeing all my text here. When a woman can work for her food, she feels good. Notice that this woman here has a baby on her back. No nannies there. An old man over the mountain and herd boys. Sometimes an unexpected approach was needed to cover an assignment. Sometimes a long walk into the Sahara was needed to find my story. And sometimes when I found a story, I was invited to stay. I want to return to this picture for just a minute. Sandy commented on the knee-high socks that were popular then. But then I noted that my skirt is short. Women don't wear trousers. They wear dresses and skirts, but long ones. And I didn't anticipate that when I packed for this trip. Afghanistan, a United Nations civil aviation story, aid to help the development of a tourism industry. I was really thrilled to have this assignment. The planes that were used were small two-engine planes that sat about 12 people. And in addition to the tourists that the country hoped to be flying back and forth, there were also the local people that could use the plane. It took us across the magnificent Hindu Kush Mountains and into the Bamiyan Valley. And the tourist destination was this giant statue of Buddha. There were several giant statues there. This is a 6th century monumental statue of Gautama Buddha, carved into a cliff in the Bamiyan Valley of Afghanistan. It stood more than 175 feet high. 1,500 years later, in 2001, it was destroyed by the Taliban on orders of the Minister for the Propagation of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice. If you look at the bottom right-hand corner of this picture, you see the scale. The tourists were able to climb up into it and look out through the eye of the Buddha. And here you see the little village and the farmland below. In the walls, you see many, looks like little caves. These were at one time inhabited by monks. And on the right is one of the paintings. Most of the caves had paintings in them, and we were able to climb into several. This is the Buddha's Hotel under construction. Soon, however, Afghanistan's tourism promotion plans were canceled because by war and revolutions. And this is the little village of Bamiyan. Another story that I did was in Iran. In preparation for her 2,500th birthday, UNESCO helped restore 17th century pavilions in Isfahan. UNESCO stands for the Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization of the UN. The pavilions faced onto a square with the Sheikh Luf, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Lufol Mosque, masterpiece of Persian architecture. Construction started in 1603. This was really one of my favorite assignments because as an artist, I was just overwhelmed with the beauty of the craftsmanship of these artists. The tile work was exquisite. The writing that you see going up on the right hand picture on the right are all words from the Quran, all done in tile. And this gentleman is actually in front of a bank. Even the banks were beautifully, or let's not say that was probably the only bank, but they were beautifully decorated in tile. Inside the pavilions, the craftsmen, local craftsmen, and also technicians through the Italian technicians from the UN were helping to restore paintings that were wall paintings. Here's another one that has been restored. They seem to like the subject matter of picnics. Also, others craftsmen were working on the restoration of ceilings. This one had been completed. And this picture is the structure of the grandest pavilion in the square. I didn't go into it because it wasn't open for anybody at that time, but the photo I took off the internet, and I should say bye to Michelangelo. Because I was having so much fun on this assignment, I stayed some time there and was able to capture the mosque from a higher altitude at a wonderful light. You can see part of Isfahan in the background. UNESCO also worked with local craftsmen on the restoration of Persepolis. It was built between the 6th and 5th centuries BC, and now the site of the grand birthday party. The expert here is Italian. He's being helped by a young Iranian boy. And you can see in the detail shot, the exquisite detail that you find there in Persepolis. Old Sana'a, this is my next story. It's one of the world's oldest continuously occupied cities. and I was there in 1975. The buildings are amazing, and they're different from any that you would ever find anywhere else in the world. This is old Sana'a today. And I took this picture off of the internet. The war in Yemen is terrible. Much of their culture and their buildings have been destroyed, and there's great famine now in the country. I was in Yemen to do a UN assignment on volunteers, UN volunteers. They base their program something like the American Peace Corps. These particular volunteers work with fishermen and dairy farmers. And then when I was going to fly back to Ethiopia, where we were living at the time, the flight was canceled, and I can't remember why, probably something political, but I was stuck in Yemen for some days, and that was just fine with me because I could then really explore. Here is a market, the souk is in the old town of Sana'a. The man on the right sells khat, which is, perhaps something like marijuana. This was certainly an interesting stall in the market. I brought one of the knives home for my brother. And amazingly, they didn't confiscate it from my luggage. The people were what I really enjoyed meeting. They were wonderful. Two little herd girls. And this woman who had a tiny little stall that she's covered against the hot sun to stop anybody along the road who might want to buy her produce. You can see also how thin her animals are. Another assignment that I did was a journey into the Oriente of Ecuador. Actually, I didn't have a specific assignment to do that, but I had a friend living in Ecuador who volunteered to take me into the jungle because I hadn't seen any that so far in my travels. And this was a newly constructed road that ended in this little town that was newly built as a result of the road. It was part of a resettlement program, which interested me because I had heard that other countries were starting to have resettlement programs. And I wondered just how successful it would be to take a people out of their homes and put them somewhere else, telling them they're going to have a better life. Unfortunately, I think many of those programs did not work well. Here are some of the settlers. And this was from a letter I wrote home. During my visit, a one-family circus came to town. It consisted of the mother, father, 3 children, 3 dogs, a parrot, and a goat. Everybody in the village crammed into the tiny big top. There was a tightrope walk, juggling, bicycle tricks, clowning, and animal tricks, culminating with the goat standing on one hoof atop a pile of wobbly boxes. Audience loved it. It will be among the best shows I'll ever see. All right, this man has his produce, which now, thanks to the road, he can send down to the town to sell. This is cassava. And this young man is clearing some of the jungle for planting. From here, where the road ends, only river transportation exists. The river eventually flows into the Amazon. Ethiopia. This picture shows the highlands and a firewood market in Harar. We lived in Ethiopia for 5 years before moving to Kenya, where we lived for 13. So altogether, I was 18 years living in Africa. Ethiopia is magnificent, as some of you know who have traveled there. And again, the people. I read in the Wikipedia that there are 80 different tribes or languages or dialects spoken in Ethiopia. I did not know that at the time we were there. One of the things that was the most interesting were their religious festivals and their wonderful art that they decorated their old churches with. My job there, or one of them, was to photograph the Organization of African Unity. It was on the occasion of the 11th anniversary, took place in 1974, and presidents from 30 African nations attended. His Imperial Majesty or Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia. This is the huge stained glass at the entrance to the Hall of African Unity. It's titled Total Liberation of Africa. And an Ethiopian artist, by the way, designed and made this. Many countries sent cultural delegations. Here are young musicians from Equatorial Guinea and the Egypt National Dance Troupe. United Nations Secretary General Kirk Waldheim attends opening session. It was he who gave me this assignment and I had a United Nations press pass. President Idi Amin on the left greets the Emperor Haile Selassie. And on the right is Vice President of Kenya, Daniel Arap Moi. He was later to become President of Kenya. That was after we had moved there. And it was one of the peaceful transitions of power. Here are two presidents that I was particularly fond of. His Excellency President and Lady Seretse Khama of Botswana. He had taken over the country as president, and it was the most successful and peaceful country in all of Africa, and it still is. He was also educated in England. On the right is President Julius Nyerere of Tanzania. Americans weren't so sure about him because he was a bit of a socialist, but I liked him very much. And like Cuba, he did a lot of good things, providing schools and free education and good health and programs and everything for his people. And here is the opening session. I was able to photograph from the balcony for this picture. And then a little later, I joined the other photographers on the floor. I was lucky that I was the only woman photographer. And because I was short and small, I usually could get in front of everybody else. And here are some of the heads of state. I had a list of them a little bit ago, but which I can't find. But you will recognize Anwar Sadat on the right top row, and also Mobutu, the president of Zaire, on the bottom left. The last story I will show you is I call the United Nations Decade of Women. For one decade, starting in 1966 to 1975, the United Nations honored special events for women. And they asked photographers to photograph women in different parts of Africa, well, of the world. My assignment was in the Sahel, which is the area between the desert and the more tropical Africa. Very dry, semi-arid area. And I was assigned Senegal, Mali, and Burkina Faso. These are some of the women gathered for a demonstration that the women on the right will be giving them. And these ladies are grinding millet. They do that every day because it can't be stored, it would go bad. And they loved it because that was their social time each day. And here is one of the families. The man has 7 wives and many, many children. And it happens to be one of the biggest problems that Africa faces because there's only so much land. And as a child gets older or grows up, he's expected to have a little bit of the land. And so the population growth is and still a major problem there. As you can see, the land was very arid. The livestock were never getting enough to eat. And life is really hard. This woman is cutting or gathering some wood for firewood, where she will cook on this open stove. And here, women are being shown how to make and use a stove that will take very little fuel to heat. And they're making meals with the ground millet and oil and some spices. The wells were mostly traditional, where the women would drop a bucket down and haul up the water. And then walk back to their homes with them. As you can see, the water was used for bathing, cooking, and also the mixing with mud and dung to cover their houses. And the World Bank had helped install some advanced wells near the villages so that they were much easier. And you can see the joy of these women and children to have such a nice well. And here is a more prosperous family. This gentleman has 5 wives and a number of kids, and I'm sure more on the way. There were 7 more assignments during those 6 months, and I loved them all. After a few months at home and lining up more work, I was off again, now with advanced pay and a lot more self-confidence. I had learned a lot about life and communication, feeling at ease in different cultures, and trying to put myself in others' shoes to better tell their stories. Dignity was the most important lesson my subjects taught me. So thank you. I can be glad to take any of your questions. Sandy, should I
Yes,
stop
Kay.
sharing?
I'm here. Kay, you can stop sharing your screen. Already we're hearing that it's outstanding, fascinating, wonderful. Kay, thank you. It was so captivating for me. I learned, hang on, I've got to change there. Anyway, I learned a lot about, your experience, but more than anything, I learned a lot about you, somebody, I have shared meetings with and gotten to know you, but knew very little about your career. And this was just really fascinating. We have lots of questions.
Good.
And I am going to start it off. I've written them all down, so I'll make sure each is covered. But if you want to ask a question that you put into a chat, we're going to open up the gallery, your audio and video.
Shall
And
I
you can
change
ask
the view so I see everybody then?
Are you on the gallery? The gallery do you see
Okay,
everybody?
Yes, those that have turned on their video, I do.
Good. You're in gallery. That's where you wanted to be. Cool. So I just want to see, if you would like to ask her yourself personally, but I have recorded all questions. I'll make sure we get to everyone if you don't ask personally. So who wants to go first?
Okay, would you go back?
Would I go back? Yes, I would. I can't, of course, not at my age and health, but yes, it would be wonderful to go back and see the same stories and how they have changed.
I'm jealous. I'm
Unfortunately,
definitely envious, Kay.
Definitely the Andes.
No, I'm envious.
Oh, yeah, it was wonderful. But it's sad to think about how some of those countries are now today with their war and famines and drought and just about every problem you can possibly imagine is facing some of them.
Hey, go ahead, Ola. Go ahead, Ola.
I was just thinking it must have been very hard for you. You said you wanted to put yourself in other people's shoes, but there was so much poverty and probably illness. You see children with those big bellies, animals that look, skin and bones. How did that affect you at the
Oh.
time?
It was very sad, but I didn't want to show that. I tried to show a positive story. So when I gave it to the UN or the World Bank or whatever I was getting the assignment from, I tried to show the dignity of my subjects as best I could. And yes, that the poverty was terrible. I don't know, you just kind of, you don't criticize it. You just accept this and hope that things will get better.
And you kept sending the film back to the US to have it developed for how long? When did you?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. I sent film back every opportunity I had. And I could pick up new film at embassies where they would, or the UN offices in that case, where they would be pouching the film to me, and also would include feedback. So after, several weeks when this kind of communication was going, I was greatly relieved. But I had to have my first roll of film developed, and I didn't do it in Ghana because I couldn't trust the labs. So I waited until I got to South Africa and had a lab develop one roll, and then I was okay.
But these days we take so many shots and we have the luxury of eliminating the bad ones and saving that one perfect one or two. But how did you handle that? I mean, you never knew what you were getting.
That's a great question. Well, I had a pretty good idea of what I was getting, but the point is that you only get 36 shots to a roll of film, and I only had so much film. So every picture I took, I had to make it count.
Okay, how did you structure your assignment? You would send the film back to the World Bank or whoever you were working with, and they would edit it?
Yes, they would edit it. They would keep the images that they wanted, and then at the end, I was able to get their offshoots. I arranged the assignments before I went. So
in some of those native huts, weren't you a little concerned?
about what, Roger?
Well, about disease and something to eat that was healthy. I would be a little concerned.
I had a big pocket when I went to the restaurant and the hotel in the morning.
That's great. You know, that raises a question that was asked earlier, Kay, is who, controlled sort of your assignments and how long you'd be there? And also someone raised a question about researching. How much research did you do as you traveled? Who did you rely on?
Well, there are a lot of questions there, Sandy.
I'm sorry, we can do one at a time.
Well, all right, the research, I did that prior to leaving. I didn't have a laptop and I could hit the internet or something, no. I had to do that before leaving. And also when I arranged an assignment, I well, for example, for the UN, I went up to New York and I talked with the photo editor who was giving me the assignments and discussed each one of them. And also I was given contacts. So that was very, very important. Working for the UN were the easier jobs that I had. And the World Bank operated in pretty much the same way. I also shot for a children's magazine, Scholastic magazine, and for a medical journal. I'm forgetting the name of it right now. And for the Encyclopedia Britannica Education Corporation, they were doing series of children for middle school age and the life of different cultures. Was
Well,
there something else in that question?
no, you actually covered it, Kay.
Good.
I think, and if not, I think that was Suko, was one of your questions you can ask, but I'm dying. Wonder Woman here, who is Diane, has asked, and I love your questions. Camilla, it's to you. What was it like? What was it like to have a mother who was out doing these assignments and living this life? How did it affect you?
You mean me as a mother?
I'm asking your daughter what it was like to be your daughter. So it's a question for her. Thank you, Diane. I like it. Yes,
Of course.
Camilla.
Well, I don't think I actually clued in until I was older. It was just sort of normal. And actually, by the time I came along, I guess by the time she started teaching me, because we homeschooled, she mostly gave up a lot of the work. So it was only when I was really young that she was going off. And I remember crying at the airport once. But certainly as an adult, her sharing stories, and also to my husband, I mean, he would just say, your mom was completely nuts. And I think she survived a lot of these situations, to Roger's question, because she is, as many of you know, just completely trusting and very positive person. So a lot of the filters that other more normal people would have just does not function for her. So I think that put her in positions, rather than positions of harm, more positions of opportunity. And I think it was also a different world. There was so much less, I mean, not to say that it was perfect and there wasn't crime, but I think it was just a lot safer to go around, except for the time she almost landed in jail. But other than that time, it was pretty.
Oh, that sounds like a good story.
Yeah, that's a
Kay.
good story, Kay.
That was in Uganda, and I was on assignment for the Physicians News Service and to photograph work that was being done against trachoma. And so I went I had permission to do it from, I got all the permission in Kampala, and I went off. I didn't have any transportation except the bus. So I took the bus up to where one of the doctors had agreed to post me. And I spent the first day taking pictures. And I also asked if I could include his family life for a small story for the Britannica, and he was delighted. So that was the plan. And so that night, after shooting his testing of and treating children's eyes, there was a banging on my hotel door, and there was a big vehicle outside, and three three-piece suited, angry-looking big men who were insisting that I leave immediately. They wanted my film, they wanted my camera. And I was to get into the car with them. And of course I refused. I went and got a roll of film. And it was a blank roll, but they didn't know that, and I gave it to them. And they wouldn't have found out until the next day. But they were prepared to actually arrest me. And I learned later that the reason was that there was a group of men that were training near there to overthrow the government, which actually happened shortly after I took the pictures.
Right.
That was Idi Amin that took
Idi
them.
Amin.
Okay, you mentioned it in one part, I think it was at the UN, that you were the only woman photographer there. And obviously the only woman photographer in some of these other places. What was that like?
Well, I didn't think about it as the only woman, except when I was photographing all the heads of state at the African Union. But it was, I don't know, it was exciting, I guess. But
Yeah.
it was, I offered something that some of the other photographers that these agencies had used didn't have, because I could photograph in situations with women that male photographers wouldn't have gotten.
Hmm.
Diane, you had another question?
I think I had a bit.
Okay, I had a question, Kay. When you gave the presentation, was it a chronological order of where you went, or was it just bits and pieces of different countries you went to?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Suku.
Sorry, was it chronological of where you went first? I know you went to Ethiopia first, and then.
No, I see what you mean. No, I actually arranged it according to the airlines and the connections that I could make. So
Okay.
I didn't have anything else in West Africa besides Ghana at that time. And I was interested in South Africa, but I didn't have any assignments there. But I arranged my air ticket to take me from Ghana to South Africa. And then I did find some wonderful stories. And I was able to sell some of that on spec later.
Okay, so you had the authority, or did you have each assignment, say for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or you could expand it to 4, 6?
Those were the days when you could change an air ticket just by contacting the nearest travel office wherever you were, and they would change it. So it was up to me.
Okay,
I stayed, no, the assignments were never given in terms of days.
okay,
It was just given as an assignment, and
Right.
if it took me 1 day or 10 days, you know, that was my problem, not theirs.
okay. And lastly, when you were in Iran, was the Shah of Iran was the leader or not?
Oh my goodness, yes. He put on that grand birthday party
Okay,
for
I thought so.
2,500 years old country. Can you imagine?
Yep,
Yeah, so
okay,
he was there. It was just maybe 2 or 3 years later that he was overthrown.
yeah, okay. That's what I was trying to find out, the order of the countries you went to, because I thought somewhere kind of.
Actually, yes, I know. Iran was done on my second trip.
Okay, got you. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yes,
Fascinating, very fascinating.
thank you.
Hey, so this is Diane. So if you could go back and revisit one location and to take more photos without any complications of health or transportation or COVID concerns, where would you go?
Uh, Oh, Diane, that's a hard question because I enjoyed almost all of them. Having lived in Ethiopia and having lived in Kenya, I didn't show you any Kenya stories, but I would certainly want to go back there. As far as photography, I don't know, I loved Mali when I was doing the assignments for the Decade of Women. It was just beautiful, the way the women dressed, and they were so friendly and seemed to really enjoy that I was there telling their stories.
Did you
Hey, your
ever?
next talk should be about the women of Africa.
Yeah. Did you
Yes,
ever
really,
keep?
I'm interested.
Did you ever keep in contact with anybody? Like, did you have the contact information from anybody there? I mean, they probably didn't have telephones, but maybe like mailing addresses. Or, I don't even know how you could keep in contact, but
You know, I'm glad you answered that, because asked that question, because in some of the later assignments, I made a point of having the UN or the bank or whatever send prints back. And I never heard from my subjects whether they ever received them.
because it would be neat, kind of like, what is that guy's name? Steve McCurry or whatever. He went back and took his subject with the woman, the girl with the eyes,
Yeah,
went
Afghan
back
girl.
20 or 30 years later. You could maybe go back and take some pictures of some of the women or subjects.
Right. I think the children would be alive still, but perhaps a lot of my
Mhm.
subjects are no longer.
Okay, Wonder
Of
Woman,
course,
he
when
had,
you look at Ethiopia, not Ethiopia, Afghanistan, many have died. They had a series of wars and revolutions, and many people were killed.
Okay, what did you do living in Africa? It sounded like you lived there, Kenya. And what was it, Ethiopia?
Yes.
What did you do when you were there?
Well, Kamal was my husband, was working for the United Nations in the Food and Agriculture Organization. So in Ethiopia, we lived on the Agriculture Research Station. And in Kenya, we had a really wonderful house in a little city in a rich agriculture area. I did some assignments from those countries, of course, but after Camellia was born, I was more of a mama than a photographer. And as she mentioned, we did homeschool, so I didn't have a lot of time for taking more assignments. But I did have an agent. I don't think, Sandy, you didn't mention that part. I had an agent for over 25 years. It was the Colorific. It was called Colorific, and they were based in London. So I was able to send images to them on a regular basis.
That
Okay,
sounds.
can I just say thank you so much for being the Peace Corps photographer in Chile back in the mid-60s. I think that was incredible, and we sure loved you a lot. And thank you so much for those special pictures.
Thank you, Jane. Yes, it was the Peace Corps where I learned to be a photojournalist.
I also have Kate Lorig over here on the right, and she was in the Peace Corps with me at that time.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
wave, Kate, wave. Oh, okay. Hi, Kate. Yeah. We're all in different places on the Zoom.
We are.
Hi, Kate.
Let me switch the next page. Yeah. Some of you haven't turned on your video, but thank you for coming.
And Kate, you just unmuted yourself. So what did you want to say?
I was just going to say that we knew Kay when.
Oh, you're
Mid-60s.
lucky.
Yeah.
That's right.
I have one question that I think is just great at this point. What would you advise young people who want to go into photojournalism? What would you advise them? Yeah, and I'll have a second part to that.
The photojournalism used to have many outlets. If you recall, there were wonderful magazines, Look magazine, Life. Of course, there's National Geographic, but that would be a real reach. I think that the thing I would advise is that wherever they would work as a photographer, that they think about it in the way that a photojournalist thinks, and take pictures carefully that really communicate. As far as traveling, there's all kinds of possibilities with through travel magazines, through travel companies. There's also businesses that put out yearly magazines of the work that they're doing. So there are many little opportunities, but I don't know that trips like I did would be feasible nowadays.
Okay.
That answer the question, Sandy?
Oh, the second part of that question is really interesting. How has it changed? How different is it today when you're preparing, excuse me, preparing to go into the profession?
Well, today, it's difficult for any young person to go into professions, I'm afraid. I don't know. When I was teaching, I really had some wonderful students, and I believe I really encouraged them. And I hope that some of them did actually work as photojournalists.
Okay. Any last remaining questions for Kay?
Actually, just one comment. That really blew me away when you were showing me the Buddha. From, I mean, I had heard about it blowing up, but I hadn't seen it before, and that was really like a special treat for me to be able to see it, in history before it happened. So that was really cool. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a real treat for me. It was amazing. And of course, I had to cry when I found out what happened to it.
But you're a treasure, Kay. So I wish we could meet it next time we meet in person. I'll come give you a big hug.
Okay, thanks.
Kay, I saw one of your previous presentations, and I just got to say that your presentations are outstanding.
Oh, thank you very much.
As is your photography, as are you. So it's a threesome there.
Oh,
Thank you very much, Kay, for sharing.
well, thank you for coming. I had a lot of fun doing this.
Thank you, Kay. Good night. Say hi to Kamal.
Okay.
I'll give you more cowbell. All right, bye.
Yeah,
Good
thank
night,
you so much, Kay. It was a delight to work with you.
Thank you.
I loved it.
And thank you for all your help, Sandy.
You're welcome.
And also I want to thank Mike
Yeah.
Sarah, because without you two helping me, I don't think I could have put this on. I honestly didn't know how to do a PowerPoint.
You look like a natural.
But you did it, Kay. You did it, you know? Yes. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Take
Okay.
care.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody. And thank you for all who joined the meeting.
Absolutely our pleasure.
Viola. I'm going to end the meeting now.